1017 FM, 710 Keel, Robert and Erin in the morning. Robert is on vacation, and I am joined by Congressman Mike Johnson this morning. Mike, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Erin, great to be with you.
The protests, let's start with the Shreveport protests. Very peaceful, no violence, just a lot of people that are angry and upset. Your response to what's going on in Louisiana with regard to the protests?
I'm proud of Louisiana. I think by all accounts, everything we've had thus far has been, a valid and valuable First Amendment expression. I think it's we hadn't had any vandalism, no violence that anyone's reported. So maybe we're showing the nation how to do it, and we certainly need some good examples right now because it's chaos in so many cities around the country.
The president has been criticized widely for his response yesterday. A lot of people say he cleared the streets of nonviolent protesters with tear gas to do a photo op in front of the church. How do you feel about that? Was that a little bit out of line?
Here's the thing, right? The president of the United States has a serious challenge right now in front of him. He's got to show compassion and empathy in response to the George Floyd crisis, but he's also got to enforce zero tolerance for Antifa and the lawless criminals who are trying to loot and burn and vandalize our cities. So it's a delicate line that he's got to walk. You know, in the Rose Garden yesterday, he promised justice for George Floyd and for the rioters, and that's exactly the mark that he needs to be on. I think that you have to distinguish between protesters and the rioters and looters. These are two different categories of people with two different, completely different agendas. So he's got a difficult challenge in front of him. I think any president in his situation right now would be criticized for whatever they do because they're darned if they do, darned if they don't. But I think the heavy hand is right because we have to enforce the law. We've got to maintain law and order. And in so many places around the country right now, that is a serious challenge.
Sending the military into our states. Some governors say he's overstepping his bounds by saying he will do that. Invoking, what is it, the 1806? What's the law he's invoking to use the military? Is that
Right.
Is that an overreach on the president's part?
Listen, you need to ask that question. We should ask that question of business owners and people who own residences, the property owners in those areas who are just watching their cities be ransacked. People in tears in both political parties of all races. We're all equally disturbed by and damaged by what's happening. So the president says he'll dispatch thousands of heavily armed soldiers and military personnel, law enforcement, if it's necessary to maintain public safety and the rule of law. And what the fact of the matter is, and everybody can see this for themselves, is you have some governors and some mayors who are either unwilling or incapable of doing their job. And their first job is public safety. It's keeping the people safe and protecting life and property. And if they can't do it, the commander-in-chief of the country has a responsibility to step in and make sure it happens because the citizens of this country depend upon that.
Mike, I'm a pretty conservative person. Watching that crowd in D.C. yesterday, a woman of about 100 pounds, pushed over, knocked down, with her hands up in the air by whether it was National Guard or Secret Service, I'm not sure. That was just one example that I saw. I thought we'd gone too far. I was disturbed by it. And these were peaceful folks, and that troubled me. Did it trouble you at all?
Oh, of course it did. I mean, I winced as you did. It's painful. It feels like you're getting kicked in the gut yourself when you see a video like that. But what we have to remember is you've got to have some empathy, not only for the peaceful protesters, but also for the law enforcement officers, the people who are on the streets, who have the charge and the responsibility of keeping everybody safe. It's an extremely stressful situation for officers on the ground, for Secret Service and all the others. They're being screamed at. Bottles are being thrown at them. Last night, police officers were attacked in multiple cities around the country. Some were shot. I mean, they don't feel like they can get control of the situation. So everybody is on edge, and that includes the officers themselves. I mean, they're worried about their own safety, of course, but they're trying to protect everyone else. So emotions run high. Many of these protesters are coming up screaming in their faces. They're throwing, Molotov cocktails at them. I mean, things get out of hand. And that's why the mayors and the governors have to establish the rule of law. They have to say, this is unacceptable. You have to make arrests. If you have to make hundreds of arrests, you do it. You stop this stuff, and you put curfews in before it gets dark. What in the world is de Blasio thinking? Send a curfew at 11 p.m. It makes no sense. It's like inviting chaos. We know what's going to happen. It's a tinderbox. They need to keep everybody locked down until we can get beyond this. And we can, because we're Americans, but we've got to do it the right way.
George Will writes in the Washington Post, I don't know if you saw this or not yet, the headline, Trump must be removed, so must his congressional enablers. This unraveling presidency began with I'm quoting, the crybaby in chief banging his spoon on his high chair. People, more and more people are feeling that way about the president. Are you surprised by that coming from somebody like a George Will?
No, I mean, George Will, I've had a lot of respect for George Will over the years, but he was a never Trumper from the beginning. I mean, that's not an epithet. He proudly boasts of it. He's been attacking the president with regularity, since he ran for the office. Look, by any objective measure, before the pandemic began, you look at February, right? It seems like it was years ago, but just rewind to February. We had the greatest economy in the history of the United States. We had record low unemployment in every demographic. We had the highest consumer confidence, record stock market highs. Everybody was doing well. Everybody lamented the president's style on occasion, his mode of communication, the way he thinks sometimes. But the results were beyond refute. And then we had the pandemic, and now we have the unrest and all these other factors that are weighing into it. It's an extreme challenge. I don't think if Ronald Reagan were president right now, he would be in high popularity numbers, because whoever it is, pick the most popular president from either party. If they were dealing with the challenges that we're facing right now, they would have ridicule and criticism at every turn. And could the president make it easier on himself? Sure. I thought his remarks on Saturday at the SpaceX rocket launch were just right on the mark and appropriate. And I am among others who are encouraging him to do more of that. I thought the Rose Garden remarks struck the right tone yesterday, and if he will do more of that and less tweeting, maybe he can deter some of the critics. But look, the results are the results. We're going to get back to that, and the way we get back to it is doubling down on the policies that got us there in the first place.
What are you most afraid of as these protests continue to spread across the nation?
I'm just concerned about, again, these governors and mayors who seem to lack the political will, it seems to me, to do the right thing. They don't want to be perceived as though they're, the Democrat mayors and governors, many of them, not all of them, but some, who don't want to be perceived as, cooperating with President Trump or the federal response. And they are willing to jeopardize public safety and set curfews, late into the night, way after dark, for some unknown reason. I can't explain it. I'm concerned about that lack of leadership, because I think it leads to chaos. And if we do not reestablish the rule of law, and we do not enable justice to be done, then we jeopardize the very foundations of our republic. And those are the things that are imperiled right now, and it should be of concern to all of us.
I know you're talking to Shreveport leaders there and others across the state. There are concerns here that our community could be a powder keg, that we could see things erupt here. Do you have that concern?
Look, it should be a concern anywhere, but I applaud those who have engaged in their peaceful First Amendment expression here. The big event at the courthouse a few days back apparently was a great event. I mean, there was no report of violence or vandalism or anything, and that's exactly what the First Amendment anticipates. Of course, we're going to have emotion and a lot of there's a lot of speech. You're not going to agree with everything you hear. That's kind of the beauty of America, right? But we have the free marketplace of ideas and that free marketplace of expression, and we have to jealously guard and protect that. But the moment that it gets beyond that, then I think that SPD and law enforcement in our cities and our region have to be ready to stomp it out immediately. I mean, to use a heavy hand, because that's what will be required so that it doesn't devolve into the chaos that we're seeing in these major cities. And that's the concern.
Congressman Mike Johnson, thanks for your time, sir.
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate you.
You bet.